Carla, you can go ahead and start the meeting now.
Fantastic. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. It is May 2nd at 4 p.m. and I'm going to call our meeting of the Livermore-Amador Valley Transit Authority to order. Could we have a roll call of our members, please?
Yes, Director Bonanno.
Here.
Vice Chair Halbert.
Present.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Josie.
Here.
Director Kick. She is absent. Let me see if she's as an attendee. No. And Director Narum.
Present.
Chair Brown.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I did see.
Wait, Brittany is here. Brittany?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Did you guys, were you saying things?
Yeah, I heard your name.
That's so weird. I have my headphones in and it was just completely silent. So
Not a problem. Thank you.
We were just doing roll call, so that's all. Glad you're here. Okay, we're on to agenda item 3, that is meeting up to the public. This is a chance for members of the audience to address the board of directors to matters within the general subject matter of our jurisdiction here at LAVTA. It's the board of directors. We do request that you submit a speaker card, but it is not required to speak. We do ask that any comments you make are limited to 3 minutes or less. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to speak to us today?
So there is one attendee in this meeting. If you'd like to raise your hand to speak, please do so now.
It's Caudry.
Yeah, it doesn't look like she would like to speak. So no attendees had any public comment, and I didn't receive anything via email from the public.
All right, terrific. Thank you. Then I will close the public hearing, agenda item 3, and move on to our consent agenda. These are considered routine in nature and normally approved by a single vote of the board. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on this item? Or written comments?
I didn't receive any written comments from the public, and the only attendee is a LAVTA employee.
Sounds good. All right, then looking for either questions, comments, or a motion from our board. Anyone?
I'd be happy to move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Moved by Josie, seconded by Kick. Comments? All right, let's take a roll call vote.
Director Bonanno.
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert. Vice Chair Halbert is not in here right now. Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Josie.
Yes.
Director Kick.
Yes.
Director Narum.
Yes.
Let me just see if he came back in. I do not see him. Chair Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, our consent agenda passes unanimously. Agenda item 5, which is LAVTA's operating and capital budget for 2023. And we do have some pretty significant items on the capital budget program. Tamara, would you like to take it away?
Sure, I'd love to. So presented to you is the FY 2023 operating and capital budget for LAVTA. I will just say the capital budget is taken directly off the capital improvement plan that you approved in March, I believe it was. So that's just kind of a rehashing with a little more written about it. In terms of operating, we are seeing some pretty high increases, over 14% overall. It wasn't really a surprise with everything that is going on. We are seeing increases in labor costs for both of our contractors. And then our fuel costs are almost budget-wise, almost $2 a gallon more than last year. And in addition to the cost per gallon, the taxes for fuel are a separate line item, and those, of course, went up as well since the price of fuel went up, although we're not actually expecting to use more fuel than what was budgeted for the current year. But the cost is significant. I budgeted at $4.50 a gallon with a little contingency added on top of that. We are hoping that is enough. We started this fiscal year out well under budget. Our budget was $280. When we started out in the $2 range, we're now paying we're paying about $3.50 a gallon. We buy our fuel on the spot market, and I get reports every day about the fuel prices, and they're going anywhere from like $3.60 to like $4.60. I mean, just bouncing back and forth. I mean, not within a day, obviously, but some days we're seeing a 30-cent fluctuation. But since we buy on the spot market, we don't buy on those days when it's high. We buy on the days when it's low. And we do have 30,000 gallon, well, 10,000 gallon tanks. So when we purchase, we usually buy about 7,500 gallons at a time. But it is a big impact on our budget. And the wage increase that was very necessary for our fixed route, of course, increased those costs as well. And we have a new paratransit contract we'll be entering into this year. And they also had to increase based on labor costs and fuel costs, unfortunately. So that's the big news on the expense side. On the revenue side, I guess the most exciting news is that we have for FY 23 and 24 some federal ARPA money. And MTC gave it to us in 2 tranches. We can't use the full amount up in 1 year just because of what we're allowed to apply it to. So for simplicity's sake, we applied the first tranche into FY 24 and the second tranche into FY 25. So, 23 and 24, it's currently 22, 23 and 24. So in 23, we have just over 5 million budgeted, and in 24, we'll have just over 4 million for us. Sorry, I always have to add on a year. I added on a year twice. So that's those are the highlights of our budget, and I'm assuming there will be questions.
I certainly have a few, but let me check and see if any of our other board members do. Would anyone like to raise their hand for questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll start. How about that? Tamara, when you look at a budget that is 14% higher than adopted, obviously you adjust many of these things, but fuel was a big part of your topic. We're looking more and more, of course, we have hybrid buses now. We're looking at, what about the stability of electricity as it relates to fuel? Are you seeing changes in that on the market? And do you see, as we're transitioning out of these fuel required buses and more into electric and electric hybrid, are you seeing some stability in your budget?
So we don't budget for electricity as fuel because we don't have any electric vehicles. Our hybrids, they're kind of like a Prius. They recharge themselves off the diesel. And then we are looking at hydrogen is what has been approved. And Tone could probably speak a little bit better on the hydrogen prices. We are anticipating them to come down. Hydrogen prices are fairly high. Luckily, we have a few years before we'll actually be able to buy hydrogen buses. And as more agencies and entities start using hydrogen, the cost should come down. We did actually, we're working on a project to get a hydrogen station built. I believe it's in Tracy, which will help with the cost as well because it won't have to travel as far to get to us.
Right. Yeah, we are definitely going to hydrogen, and I truly appreciate that. I didn't realize our hybrid buses recharge themselves. That's interesting.
They do. That's great.
What about the paratransit vehicles? Are those plug-in at all?
I don't believe so. Tone, on the new contracts, I don't know what kind of vehicles they proposed. I'm assuming they're gas, but I'm not positive.
They are. The entire fleet are made up of gasoline sedan and vans.
Or why did we decide to go that route instead of an electric option?
So with the paratransit service, we're currently under a contract with TransDev, which is the operator for County Connection. And TransDev have a subcontractor, which is Big Start, and they're the one that provides the vehicles. So the vehicle came with the contract that County Connection has. So our MOU is kind of inherited of what was already in the contract.
Okay, I'll see if anybody on the board would like to push for something different. And then when we have the option, I think that's most of my questions. To Tamara, are we tax exempt at all? When you talk about paying fuel taxes, I know it's a big portion of what we have for our expenses. Do we get any credit on taxes?
Yes, the tiniest amount. We are
Hmm.
exempt from the federal excise tax. However, in theory, when we're buying diesel, we get some of that back. It's a tiny bit in STA revenue. And we get some money back from Measure B and BB. Oh, excuse me, just BB. B's gone now.
Yeah.
BB. Of course, it's not, it's always funny because when diesel prices go up, people are like, yay, we'll get more STA. And I'm always like, but not as much as we're paying more in fuel. So it doesn't offset that amount by hardly anything. But no, we are exempt from federal excise taxes. And that's pretty much it. We have to pay a special tax. But that one's based on the number of gallons for having underground storage tanks. But that's based on number of gallons. So some of the taxes are based on gallons, but then you have like your sales tax, which is based on cost.
Thank you. You state on page 2 of, I guess this is a summary report, but the remaining 4.3 million will be budgeted into 2024. I know this is early, but there are a lot of fluctuations on fuel. As I drive down the street as a user, sometimes it's 30 cents higher, sometimes it's 30 cents lower. I've heard that China's not importing as much. So now the crude price is dropping, but you've got 4.3 million. Is that some of that going to be used for the buses we've talked about acquiring, like the hybrid buses and so forth, or is this separate from that?
No, that's ARPA money, and it can only be used for operations.
Okay.
So it could be used for fuel, but it doesn't need to be. We use it pretty much to pay our fixed route contractor. And there's rules about things that have to be subtracted. We have to subtract the fares we collect and stuff like that. That's why we can't use the full 10 million. We wouldn't be able to use it up all in 1 year. So they already had it split. So I just left it split exactly the way they had it. All it does is offset the TDA we would use 1 year versus the other.
Okay, thank you. You know all those ins and outs of the American Rescue Plan off the top of your head, and I don't, so I appreciate it.
No worries.
All right, board member Bonanno.
Yes, thank you. Let's see, a couple of quick questions. Tamara, does the budget assume full staffing at the new wages that we approved at last month's meeting?
No, and I knew you were going to ask that. And I have a special spreadsheet. I can tell you what we did. What we did based on it assumes that we will be at 91% budgeted by the end of the 91% staffed by the end of this fiscal year. So what we did is for the first quarter, and I should tell you the cost we pay per hour is also based on the level that we're running, the cost per hour plus the management fee, because the management fee includes mechanics. So if you're running more buses and more hours, you need more mechanics. So we assume that in the first quarter, we would be at 79% fully staffed. That was kind of the midpoint. Tone has this wonderful spreadsheet that had this kind of all projected out. And then quarter 2 at 85%, quarter 3 at 87, and then quarter 4 at 91. And then the hope and the plan is that for fiscal year 24, we'll be able to budget at full staff, because hopefully we will have that full steady staff where we're not worried about, it dropping all of a sudden, that kind of thing. So that's what we did. We fluctuated it based on kind of what we're seeing out there. And I will tell you, those wages have helped. The hiring has already improved. They've seen an uptick in applicants. So
great, that's great to hear. And I think this stepping up through the quarters is the right approach. So thank you for that. One last question. You mentioned that we are still within our reserve, in compliance with our reserve policy.
Mhm.
Can you just say two things? What is our reserve policy in terms of what fraction of, or what dollar amount or fraction of budget needs to be held in reserve, and how close are we? That may be buried in one of your tables that I didn't get to, but I thought it would be easier to ask you than spend the time pouring through the columns.
No, of course. So it's actually right behind the staff report. And I'm glad I have it on paper because I've now changed screens too many times. So our policy is 3 to 6 months. And that was set in place because at one time we had nothing in reserves. And the economy crashed in 2009. And so if you look, the uncommitted, so the dollar amount would be 6 to 12 million. And our uncommitted reserves, because we have a very high number, but if you look at the capital budget, it shows a lot of TDA coming out for like the Atlanta's facility and that kind of thing. We have to budget it in there so that we can get the other funding sources. But if I draw that TDA down now and we don't spend it right away, I have to send it back and then I can't get it back for 2 years. So I didn't draw it all down. So I have it listed as committed reserves, those amounts. So when you subtract all the committed reserves, we're just under 16 million.
Okay,
So above our 6 month.
got it. Great. Thank you. I do see that now. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's all I had for questions.
Doolin Tower upgrade. What is the Doolin Tower upgrade?
So Doolin Tower, and for years I thought it was a technical term. It's our radio tower on Doolin Road. Right? Yeah. I always thought it was some like fancy, technology I didn't understand. And Doolin Road is right off the freeway. The land actually belongs to, I think it's the city of Pleasanton. It's one of the cities, and it's the water department for one of the cities actually owns the land. Oh, it's Livermore, because we worked out this deal that they would let us use the land for free, and we would provide bus tickets at the time. Now we do our passes, but to their HSA department to give out to people who needed it in exchange for letting us use the land for free. So that's our radio and our AVL system. And with the, we had an uninterruptible power source up there that kept dying because it could only hold power for so many hours. And with those PG&E shutoffs that we have during the summer, we had an issue where we had, the system was down for multiple days. We were still able to use the radio as open mic, but you can't track the buses. If there's an emergency, the driver has to just, grab the radio and hope you hear them. There's no alarm, there's no tracking them, that kind of thing. So we're trying to prevent that from happening by putting in a much bigger generator.
Interesting that we have our own communication system instead of just using the internet. So cell phone towers and so forth. Okay. All right. Well, sorry, board member Bonanno and I don't sit on the finance committee, and they've probably asked you all these questions, but this is our chance to ask. Okay. I don't see anyone else for questions. So would anybody, especially from the finance F&A group, like to make a motion, or anyone?
I'll move with a question. I'm with the kids, so I'm a little distracted. Did you go over the fact that you have what is it? Tiered staffing levels with the rest of the board? Okay, good.
Yes.
Great. That's all I wanted to make sure was pointed out, that we did ask that, and that is clear. And I will move approval.
Okay, thanks. Seconded. Okay, motion made by Kick, seconded by Naram. Can we have a roll call vote? Oh, do we have anybody who would like to speak on this? Did anybody write in?
So there's no attendees any longer in this meeting, and I didn't receive any comments via email.
Got it. All right, thank you.
I'll go ahead with roll call. Director Bonanno.
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Josie.
Aye.
Director Kick.
Aye.
Director Naram.
Aye.
Chair Brown.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, sometime I'm going to have to ask you guys what's the difference between aye and yes or yay. But I don't want to slow down our meeting. Our next agenda item is a continuation proposal for a 3-month pilot extension for the 3CTA and LAVTA paratransit program. Tone?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So as you know, a joint RFP with County Connection was issued in January of this year. The original plan was to bring the staff recommendation for a contract award to today's meeting. Although a vendor has been selected by the evaluation panel and approved by the joint ad hoc committee, negotiation with the select vendor is still in progress. Based on what's still outstanding, staff expect the negotiation to be wrapped up in the next 2 weeks, which is just in time for the May P&S and the June board meeting. So for today, staff is requesting to extend the MOU with County Connection for the paratransit pilot program until June 30th. This will allow us enough time to complete the ongoing RFP and have a new contract in place by July 1. So no change to the service, no change to the contract, just the term of the agreement extending 3 months. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any question you may have.
I don't see any hand raised, but I was pleased to be a part of this subcommittee along with Supervisor Halbert, and all the results are coming back extremely positive. Could you expand on that, Tone? Just what you're seeing from feedback from the users and riders of this blended, unique agreement between 3CTA and LAVTA?
Sure. So part of the main metrics that the ad hoc committee agreed to track included on-time performance, productivity, which is passenger per hours, customer complaints, and cost per hour. And through the first, I think we looked at the first 11 months of the pilot program, everything was trending in the right direction. And I do want to take this opportunity to thank Supervisor Halbert for bringing up an issue that we experienced early on. I think around Thanksgiving of last year, we had an issue with a trip that was scheduled for Sean Costello. And through that exercise, we learned that a few of the staff that were overseeing the reservation function wasn't properly trained, and that the phone system we had in place wasn't working properly. So since then, the staff has been retrained, and County Connection recently went to a new system where now the way it works is they call a Wheels number and they get transferred to the call center. In the past, the person that's answering the phone doesn't know if that call is coming from a County Connection customer or a LAVTA customer. But with the new phone system, we'll identify this is a LAVTA customer. So they all have a script, one for County Connection, one for LAVTA. So now the process is a lot more streamlined. So again, thanks to Supervisor Halbert for bringing that issue forward to us for us to address the procedures and as well as the training.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, don't see anybody's hands raised for the approval on this agenda item. Did we receive anything written, please?
So there's no public attendees right now, and I did not receive any public comments via email.
Okay, well then I'll look for a motion to approve.
Halbert will move.
Oh, I'll let the supervisor go.
Okay. All right, thank you. So a motion made by Halbert and seconded by Bonanno. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Director Bonanno,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert,
Aye.
Director Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Josie,
Aye.
Director Kick,
Aye.
Director Narum,
Aye.
Chair Brown.
Yes, aye.
Motion passes.
Terrific. Okay, we have one more agenda item before we go into closed session, and that is our executive director's report. So I'll call on our interim executive director, Ms. Edwards. Would you please give us a little rundown?
Thank you. We actually talked about changing its name. Just so it wouldn't be confusing, changing it to interim executive director's report. It's been busy around here. There's a lot going on. And we're seeing our ridership continue to tick up. It was affected somewhat by spring break, of course. As you know, presently our student riders make up about 50% of our riders. So having them off school for a week did affect our ridership, but it was still up, which is awesome. And you just heard about the paratransit request for proposals and where we are on that. The Rutan landscaping project is in full swing. They are almost completely done with demolition. They're like 3 days ahead of schedule on that. Unfortunately, we have found a couple issues we didn't know about, some additional plants that need to come out, but it'll all work out. It's all going to be gorgeous. It already looks better. It's all dirt right now. And just having those shrubs down we could actually see across the street, and people out on the street can see into our parking lot. We had some issues with inappropriate activity in our parking lot overnight and on weekends. So we're hoping to stop that, not from our employees or anybody like that. People from the outside who don't realize that we have a lot of cameras. And as I think you all know, masks are now optional for passengers. Our passengers seem to be very happy with that. The drivers are still carrying masks. The sign says that they're optional, and if you'd like one, the driver will be happy to give you one. Some of the drivers are still wearing masks. We left that up to them as it's their own safety. So passengers are still asking for them. Not as much. We don't give out as many as we did, but we are still giving out masks. So. And the governor has proposed 3 months free transit as a way to combat high gas prices, get people on the bus. So we are working on an analysis to see so that we can bring to you how much we might get from that. Because it's not based on your ridership, it's based on a formula and what's available out there and who applies. And if someone doesn't apply, your amount goes up a little. But then also how much we would lose in revenues. But the bigger number is probably going to be if we go fare free on fixed route, we have to go fare free on paratransit. So if that increases number of trips, that's where the cost comes into play. Whereas, more people on our buses that are already running doesn't cost us more money. So paratransit's where it may make the decision a little harder. We'll see what happens when we get that all worked out. And the Dublin parking garage, the county has issued the contract, and they expect the construction activities to start in August. And we saved some money on the Tri-Valley Hub study for the 680. And so that money can be moved somewhere else into that grant. So Jennifer Yamas is working with the state on that so that we don't want to give the money back. We'd rather use it on that project. So she's working on that. And I believe that's all the excitement going on around here. Well, other than the stuff you already know about.
Well, that is a lot of excitement. So yes. And Supervisor Hamburg gave us a brief rundown of the Dublin parking garage at our last projects and services meeting. I see your hand is raised this time, David.
Yes, if I could. Great report, Tamara. Thank you. There's been a lot of discussion around mask mandates on transit. And I know it's gone a little bit of a back and forth. I note that at least the BART organization has self instituted a mask mandate. And so I'm wondering if we've considered doing the same and following or not. And then, so that's one question. Related to that is, I just want to make sure that we're continuing to keep our finger on the pulse of COVID, especially as it relates to our drivers and our staff. And so if we're having a continuing dialogue with our drivers around their feelings of personal safety and being respectful of things that concern them, and also if we're keeping track of just their overall health. Are we seeing spikes in COVID reports of having COVID, or any of our drivers, God forbid, being hospitalized or anything like that? If we're keeping track of that and what the situation is with them. I don't want to sound the alarm, so to speak, but I want to make sure that we remain vigilant.
So let me answer the second question first. So in terms of our driver and our LAVTA staff, we have not had a report. MV Transportation, we meet with their manager every morning, and he would come in and let us know, we have 2 drivers that tested positive, or we had somebody who was exposed, so they're quarantining at home, that kind of thing. We haven't had that in a while. I mean, it's been quite a while. We haven't had anybody, drivers or mechanics, out with COVID. We did have 2 LAVTA staff members, but we were able to, it didn't go past that. And I went to the driver safety meetings this month. And this was right about the time that the mask mandate was, we were hearing that it was going to be put to an end. And the drivers were happy to hear that they had the choice, that they would have the choice, but most of them were happy to not have to enforce it with the passengers, because the passengers who don't want to wear a mask, and then the drivers would have to tell them, you have to wear a mask. It's mandated by the CDC. A little easier to put it on the CDC. It's mandated by the CDC. And some passengers would put their masks on, and some passengers wouldn't. And some passengers would threaten the driver. And sometimes we had to call the police out. And the police honestly did not want to come out because somebody didn't put their mask on, but our drivers had no choice. So they were actually, there was a lot of excitement about the fact that they were not going to have to enforce it. And we did tell them that they were welcome to wear their masks as long as they want, because they need to take care of themselves. And they were also told, be sure you're using the, we have a barrier between the driver and passenger. It's plexiglass and metal. We are still, the buses are still being, I can't think of the term, but where the air is being filtered and cleaned. So that's kind of the reaction that's happened here, and kind of the status of where we are with COVID here at LAVTA. To be honest, compared to other agencies, even agencies our size, we never had the kind of outbreak that others did. And I have said for the longest time that was just pure luck, that just with just this number of people. And then in terms of considering having a mask mandate on wheels buses, that is certainly up to the board. That's, if that's the board's desire, we have masks in the hallway. We have, I think, a few thousand masks in the hallway, and Tony knows where to get more. So that, that's completely up to you.
Very good. No, I appreciate that. I'm again, not sounding the alarm, just sort of asking the question. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, good question. Okay, and I want to thank Tamara. She got a report that somebody was smelling something strange in the regeneration part of the particulate removal filtration program apparatus. And I guess that's where it ended up falling, is that you gave me the feedback, everything was in operational order, and the rider just said they're very, very sensitive. So extremely sensitive, like maybe a person most people wouldn't even notice. So
I actually watched the video of that incident.
Yeah.
And the other passenger sitting in the back of the bus didn't react at all. But this particular passenger, you could see she was struggling. And the driver got her to the next bus stop and got her off the bus as quickly as he could. We also had MV's general manager, that's who she'd reached out to initially. I thought he'd explained to her exactly what it was, but he said he hadn't got into enough detail. And I think that's why she thought it was the air conditioning filter, because if you say filter, that's what, who knows about particulate matter trap filters? I mean, I do, but most people don't. Your normal passenger wouldn't. So he called back and he explained to her exactly what it was, that they just happen when it's time to happen. There's no way to, you can't stop them. You can't predict them. And I wish there was a way to prevent it when she's on the bus, but unfortunately there just isn't.
Well, as a follow-on question, is there some areas of a bus that are further away from the particulate matter filtration?
Mm-hmm. So particulate matter trap, and I can send you pictures if you'd like, because I had the maintenance department get me into the back of the bus, lift up the engine, show me how it works. They are in the back of the bus. So there's a panel that lifts up in the back of the bus, and there's these pipes, and they go up and they actually feed out the top of the bus, that exhaust pipe out the top of the bus. So I'm not sure, and we checked, we made sure there were no holes, because if there was a hole in the pipe, you might smell it inside the bus, but there were no holes, there was no nothing. I got on the bus when we did the manual regeneration. I couldn't smell it. I wasn't affected by it. But again, this is somebody with a very, very sensitive respiratory system.
I was thinking if it just vents to atmospheric pressure, if the wind was blowing and did a reverse flow, or just strange, very strange,
possible.
Very unusual situation. Okay, thank you very much. Board member Kick.
I was just wondering, following up to the comment about our filtration continuing. We're not, well, I'll ask the question rather than make an assumption. Are we planning to continue that forever? I personally feel that there's benefits to air filtration beyond COVID. So is that something that we're budgeting long term?
Yes, so that system cost us over $200,000. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's working, we'll continue it. Tone did budget for the annual maintenance on it. So it is budgeted, and honestly, I can't see why we'd want to take it out unless, one of the systems died on one of the buses or something, but they're really only a year old. So we've got a long time.
And they're used by students who have historically have germs.
Yeah, they're
So a higher
disgusting.
percentage of
I'm just
germs.
kidding. I'm talking only about my own germy children.
That's right. But
Okay,
even
thank you. I
us-
just wanted to clarify we budgeted that maintenance because I didn't
Sure.
remember seeing it. Thank you.
All right, good question. But yeah, even those high school students have germs. Okay, all right. So with that, Executive Director's report conclusion, thank you for the good questions. We're going to adjourn to closed session. All of our board members should have received an email just recently from Zoom. It'll say from Zoom, and it will be your link. So I'll see you in closed session.
Or not.
I left here.
I think you're in the wrong room.
Carla, you used the wrong link. Oh, there she goes.
This is a link for a meeting with Tony. And look who's back. You're on mute.
What was that?
Tomorrow's on mute. Are you supposed
Yeah,
to be?
I asked her to unmute. I don't know. Oh, I wonder if she's trying to go into the other meeting. Possible.
Jennifer, sorry, this is the one I've received. So let me go back and look again.
Tony, are you in person there in the office? I guess
Did
Jen,
you,
just
I'm here.
let Tamara know we're back.
Okay.
Looking for Councilmember Narum. Michael, we still have posted on our agenda, refrain from wearing scented products to these meetings, even though they're fully Zoomed.
Yeah.
As someone with extreme allergies, I appreciate that.
Even in Zoom.
From a distance.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think the rules are going to change anytime soon, by the way, on the remote meetings.
Good. How about the where we have to vote every month for
It was on our consent calendar, wasn't it?
361? Is that going to change, do you think? Because some meetings we
There are
have.
two bills. There are two bills. Our agenda had the consent calendar. Our consent calendar had the adoption of the 361. There are some bills that would modify, but I heard they're getting kind of held up. I saw an update from the league, and I'll hear more. I'm going to the city attorney conference on Wednesday. But I heard the one that was really most flexible was also the one that was getting opposition from the newspaper association. So we'll see.
I know some of the meetings that we attend are quarterly, and it's quite uncomfortable to be creating meetings that are not necessary. Okay, well, we are going to reconvene to open session and discuss the appointment of the interim executive director and compensation. Mr. Conneran, would you like to take the lead?
Sure. The board met in closed session both to discuss the recruitment process for the new executive director, as well as to discuss negotiations with staff regarding the interim filling of the roles. And I think the board really two actions. One is the appointment of the interim executive director, which would be Tamara Edwards. I think we should have a separate vote on that. And then we've discussed adding a salary increment of 7% of Tamara's salary, which I understand she would like to dedicate to her deferred compensation plan, and then 3% of Tony's salary, which I don't know if Tony has a preference salary or deferred comp, but I think we can give him that choice. So if the board's ready to move, I would say you could maybe do it as all one, given the pain of having to do multiple roll calls. If someone make a motion for that collective action.
I'll move that we give Tamara 7% increase to her deferred comp plan as she requested, and 3% at his choice.
And this is the LAVTA salaries, right? This is nothing to do with that.
Yes.
Without competition. I'll second that. And also
I just seconded it.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, my mistake then. Okay, motion made by Board Member Kick and seconded by Narum. Since you made the motion, Board Member Kick, would you like to make any comments?
I'm just excited to have them helping us fill in and keep things moving smoothly. So thank you both for taking on a little extra to keep things going.
Yeah, anyone else? Yeah, I'm going to extend my deep appreciation.
I just want to add a couple, exactly what Brittany said, but also the fact that, these
Tony and Tamara have been with the agency for a very long time. And so I feel comfortable with them. You know, it seems like it just is kind of going seamless. Even though I know we all miss Michael, but they already behind the scenes do a lot and have a lot of responsibility. So I just wanted to make sure they're aware that the board is aware of that.
Excellent. Any other comments?
Ditto from Halbert.
Ditto. Yeah.
And Josie as well.
Aaron too.
You guys just have done such a good job of explaining it all, but I'm going to just say it out loud as well. Tamara, you're always just a terrific leader, and the idea that you know you're going to be leaning on Tony, and you were gracious enough to say, wait, I want compensation to go to Tony as well is just part of your leadership skills that we all admire. So thank you for that. Thank you for taking on the extra job in addition to your current job. And thank you, Tony, for being here and being so solid for us. And even on the front of our operation services is, of course, our Madden van. So you both are above and beyond, and we greatly appreciate your service to the LAVTA community. We do miss Mr. Tree, so we will take a lot of responsibility to find his replacement as soon as possible. Okay, so could we take a vote, please, for this agenda item 12?
Yes, Director Bonanno,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert,
Aye.
Director Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Josie,
Aye.
Director Kick,
Aye.
Director Naram,
Aye.
Chair Brown.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, excellent. Feels solid to know we're in good hands. Matters initiated by Board of Directors. These take 3 votes to put something on a future agenda. Anybody looking to initiate something? Right, seeing none, our next meeting date is scheduled for June 6th. And thank you for the subcommittee for working on the recruitment. Meeting's adjourned.
Bye, everyone. Good meeting.